The alarm bells rang through the dark silence of Kepler 7, 4 eyes lifted from a cooling cup of bitter drink. Senior scanner Vexai had been at this job for 23 years. He had scanned supernovas. He had traced the birth of stars. He had charted the drift of asteroids older than entire civilizations. He thought he had seen everything space could offer. But this was different. Red lights burned across his console. His blue fingers tapped at controls faster than thought. Again and again he recalibrated. Again and again he rechecked. The result never changed. There was something in the forbidden zone, something alive, something impossible. His people were Zenthari. They were careful, precise. They never trusted one reading alone. So he ran the scans 3 times, then a 4th, but the answer refused to change. There was a ship in the dead heart of the Xerian Nebula, not wreckage, not a phantom echo, a ship that still breathed. And not just any ship, a human ship. Vexai felt his pulse race in a way he had not felt since his youth. Humans. Those fragile beings who had joined galactic society barely a century ago. 2 eyes, 2 hands, soft skin that bruised so easily, no claws, no psychic senses, no armor, no special resistance to radiation or fire or cold. They were a species of fragile bone and fragile hope. By every measure, they should not have survived long in the wide galaxy. And yet here one of their ships sat, in the most dangerous place known. The Forbidden Zone was more than a name. It was a graveyard of civilizations. At its center lay the old machines of the progenitors. No one remembered what the progenitors had truly been. Only their guardians remained, cold and merciless. They destroyed everything that entered their realm. Fleets had tried to break through and been reduced to ash. No ship survived more than minutes, not even the strongest hegemony battleships. So how could a human cargo hauler be alive inside that storm of death? Vexai called his supervisor with a voice he barely kept steady. Within moments, the bridge of the warship Inevitable Justice was lit with the same impossible reading. Captain Zethara herself leaned forward in her chair, green scales gleaming under pale light, yellow eyes that had seen war, clawed hands drumming slowly on her console. This must be error, she hissed. Sensors lie, machines break, nothing survives in the Forbidden Zone. Tests were ordered, equipment replaced. Scans repeated with every frequency known. The result never shifted. There was a ship, human, alive, sending a weak distress signal across the static veil. The crew of Inevitable Justice fell silent. They all knew the rules. No one entered the Forbidden Zone, not ever, not for any reason. The machines inside did not negotiate. They did not hesitate. They destroyed, always, but this signal was human, real, pleading. Word spread quickly. Within hours, the monitoring station swarmed with officers and scientists. Some shouted it had to be deception. Others whispered darker fears. Dr. Korak arrived next. His scales were old. His body carried scars of decades spent among ruins. He had studied progenitor artifacts longer than most civilizations had been in space. When he saw the readings, his voice broke to a whisper. This is not possible. The fields inside that zone tear matter apart at the atomic level. Nothing can endure them. Nothing. Yet a simple human freighter named Lucky Break floated unharmed. Old by human standards, scarred and battered, but still intact. Even more frightening was the behavior of the Guardians themselves. The machines had always been merciless, but they ignored the Lucky Break. They turned their weapons away. They let it drift in silence. Vexai stared at the displays. The ship moved slightly every few hours as if carried by unseen tides. But no readings explained it. No gravity, no current. It was as if invisible hands guided it deeper into the nebula. And the machines were stirring. Dormant towers flared to life with energy not seen for 1,000 ages. Vast structures pulsed with power, as if the presence of this fragile human vessel had awakened something that had slept too long. Council chambers across a dozen worlds filled with arguments. Was it secret human technology? Was it illusion? Or was it something far more dangerous? Some dared whisper a forbidden thought, that humans were not strangers to these machines, that they might share some hidden bond. As the debates raged, the Lucky Break continued to drift. Inside, its failing hull voices called weakly for rescue, and in the shadows of the nebula ancient guardians stirred, watching, waiting. Vexai had no gift for prophecy, But as he stared at the human ship surrounded by silent death, he felt the truth rise in his chest. This was not accident. This was not chance. This was beginning. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The council chamber was vast, a dome of light filled with voices that rarely agreed on anything. Yet this time every species spoke of the same impossible truth. A human ship was alive inside the forbidden zone. The words alone felt like blasphemy. Fleet Admiral Korak sat at the center of it all. His scales were dark and ridged, his eyes sharp from a lifetime of war. He had fought enemies that seemed unstoppable. He had seen fleets torn apart by weapons that should not exist, but nothing had ever unsettled him like this. The council demanded answers. Some said it was a human trick, that their kind had hidden technology far more advanced than they had revealed. Others swore it was impossible. Humans had been studied, measured, dissected by science. They were ordinary, weak. And yet their ship still endured. Dr. Lissa Andra appeared before the council. Her body shimmered with soft light. She was ethereal, a race of living mist and memory, known as the most gifted scientists in the galaxy. She had spent her life studying progenitor ruins, and the readings she carried shook her very being. The Forbidden Zone does not simply destroy, she said. It rewrites the rules of existence itself. Matter cannot survive within its fields. Time and space collapse. Every probe we have sent has been erased, and yet these humans remain. She displayed the energy patterns, holographic waves rippling through the chamber. Each curve told the same story. No known shield could resist such forces. No material could endure. By all logic, the human freighter should have been reduced to nothing the instant it crossed the line. The chamber grew restless. Voices rose in panic and accusation. How? Dr. Lissa paused. Her light dimmed with fear. I do not know, but this changes everything. General Thixvar rose from his seat, his armored form towering, his mandibles clacking with unease. His words echoed across the dome. If humans can enter these zones unharmed, then they hold the key to all progenitor secrets. Secrets that no one has touched for 1,000,000 years. Do you not see the danger? For centuries, the Council had enforced strict law. No one entered the zones. No one touched the ancient machines. The Guardians had made sure of it. And now a fragile human ship sat at their heart untouched. Some demanded the humans be contained at once. Some wanted them studied. Some wanted them destroyed. Fear tasted thick in the air. But not all voices spoke of fear. A few dared to whisper something else. Hope. If humans could endure the zones, perhaps they could awaken the ancient technology. Perhaps they could bring power beyond imagination. Perhaps they could lead the galaxy into a new age. Outside the chamber, fleets gathered. Warships positioned themselves near the nebula. Officially, they came to assist. In truth, they came to watch, to prepare, to strike if necessary. Back at the monitoring station, Vexai had not moved from his console in hours. His 4 eyes locked on the drifting human vessel. The lucky break. It looked so fragile, scarred metal, wounded engines, barely holding together, yet still alive. Every few hours it shifted again, sliding deeper into the nebula as if pulled by unseen currents. No scanner explained it. No gravity well, no energy signature, nothing but silence, as if space itself had decided to guide the humans inward. And each movement woke more of the Guardians. Vast towers of light flickered. Structures shaped like crystal and shadow began to hum with power. Machines older than memory stirred as if remembering their duty. Vexai felt unease grip him tighter each passing moment. He was no soldier, no prophet. Only a scanner who watched the stars, but he knew this much. The presence of the humans was not accident. Something ancient had recognized them. Something ancient was responding. 3 days after the discovery, the Council reached no agreement. Arguments raged without end. But Admiral Korak made his decision. He would not wait for endless debate. He would act. Against orders, against fear, against centuries of law, he declared a rescue mission. The Council erupted. Voices shouted that it was madness, that it was reckless, that no ship should be wasted on a few humans who did not matter. Some called it betrayal, some called it war. But Korak stood firm. His voice carried iron. We do not abandon those in need. Whether human or saurian or any other kind, if life calls for help, we answer. And we must know how they survived. This knowledge is too important. And beneath his words lay another truth he did not speak aloud. Reports were arriving from across the galaxy. Other progenitor sites were stirring. Machines that had slept for millennia were waking. Energy patterns were rising, and all of it had begun when the humans entered the Forbidden Zone. If this continued, the galaxy itself could be undone. Korak needed answers before it was too late. Volunteers were called. Many thought none would come, but more offered than expected. Captain Zethara was first. She had seen the readings from the start. Her warship was strong, her will stronger. She would go. Dr. Lysandra volunteered as well. Her research ship carried instruments unmatched by any other. She would find the truth or perish seeking it. And then came the unexpected. Silent Song, a representative of the Void Walkers, a being of shadow and absence. They rarely involved themselves in the affairs of others, yet Silent Song asked to join. Their presence alone declared the gravity of what was unfolding. The rescue fleet was small. One warship, one science vessel, one shadow of the void. Too many ships would invite disaster. The plan was simple: slip past the Guardians, reach the lucky break, bring the humans out. But every soul who joined knew the truth. No plan had ever succeeded before. As the fleet prepared, Vexhai joined the crew of Inevitable Justice. His hands shook as he adjusted his scanners, yet he refused to stay behind. He had seen the impossible first. He would see it through to the end. The nebula loomed ahead, a wall of storm and silence. Inside waited the lucky break, waiting, watching. And deeper still, the ancient machines stirred awake. The fleet departed into the dark, and the galaxy held its breath. The stars shifted as the fleet approached the boundary, 3 ships moving in silence. Weapons powered down, engines dimmed to the lowest glow, every crew member breathed shallow. Every mind whispered the same thought: do not be seen. The boundary of the Forbidden Zone was not visible like a wall of stone. It was a veil of living energy, a storm of light twisting across the void. Many had entered before. None had returned. The warship Inevitable Justice led the way. Captain Zethara stood tall on her bridge. Her claws rested steady on the console, though her heart pounded deep within her chest. She had fought battles across the galaxy. She had commanded victories against impossible odds, yet she had never felt fear like this. Vexhai watched his scanner with 4 unblinking eyes. He expected alarms to explode the instant they touched the veil. He expected death to come like a blade. Instead, there was silence. The ship slid through the storm as though it was not there. Dr. Lysandra followed in her science vessel. Her body shimmered with nervous light. She whispered to herself in awe, "This is impossible. The Guardians are awake. The energy fields are active. They should have seen us. They should have destroyed us." But nothing came. Last of all, Silent Song entered. Their shadow form drifted across the veil without resistance. Their voice echoed through the translator. The gates remember their makers. That is why they do not strike. No one dared reply. Inside the Forbidden Zone, the universe was changed. It was not space as they knew it. It was geometry and light. Vast structures floated like frozen thunder. Towers made of crystal energy stretched into infinity. Shapes twisted in forms that hurt the eyes to follow. Every law of physics bent and reshaped into something older, something stronger. And within that storm of alien wonder drifted the lucky break. Vexhai felt his heart's race. There it was, small, fragile, scarred by fire, yet alive. Its beacon whispered weakly. Its hull glowed faint under the strange light. It was a speck of rust within eternity, and still it endured. As they closed the distance, Dr. Lissa's instruments began to scream with energy readings. Entire progenitor complexes were powering up. Systems that had been dark for millions of years flared awake. Energy flowed across the zone like veins in a living body. She whispered what none wanted to hear. "This is not coincidence. The ship is the trigger. The humans are the reason the machines awaken." Captain Zethara silenced the channel with a single word: focus. Boarding shuttles prepared. Medical teams stood ready. The plan was to move fast. Secure the human crew, escape before the Guardians noticed. If they were lucky, perhaps they would live to speak of it. The shuttle pierced the strange light and drifted toward the lucky break. The human freighter looked worse up close. Hull scorched, engines gutted, panels torn open, yet still its systems pulsed faintly, still its beacon called. Inside that dying ship, Captain Sarah Chen watched through a cracked viewport. She saw the alien vessels approach with a heart too heavy to hope. 6 months had passed since the jump drive had betrayed her. 6 months of silence and fear. 6 months of waiting to die. And now rescue had come. She was no soldier, no hero. She was a cargo pilot, middle-aged, worn by years of work. Her crew had followed her because they trusted her. Mike Torres her engineer, Lisa Park her navigator. They had signed on for pay, not destiny. Yet here they were, survivors in the one place no life should stand. Sarah whispered to her crew, "Hold on, help has come." Her voice trembled, but her eyes stayed hard. She had kept them alive when every moment screamed doom. She had rationed food. She had patched systems with her own hands. She had refused to surrender even when hope was gone. That was the human way. The boarding shuttle docked. The hatch opened with a hiss. Captain Zethara stepped inside. Her green scales gleamed. Her eyes cut across the dim corridor, and she saw them, 3 fragile beings, pale, bruised, exhausted, but alive. Sarah straightened despite her weakness. She spoke with a voice raw but unbroken. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth cargo vessel Lucky Break. We require immediate assistance." For a moment silence filled the air. Then Captain Zethara answered, "I am Captain Zethara of the Galactic Hegemony warship Inevitable Justice. You are safe now." The words felt heavy with truth, yet Vexai could not silence the voice in his mind. Safe, but for how long? The human crew were brought aboard. Medics swarmed them with scanners and treatments. Scientists flooded them with questions. Dr. Lissa pressed close. Her light shimmered with excitement as she asked, "How did you survive the weapons? What did you do? What shield did you use?" Sarah shook her head slowly. "We did nothing. They fired, then they stopped. That is all." Mike Torres lifted a pad filled with logs he had studied for months. His voice shook with wonder and dread. "The weapons scanned us. They hit us again and again, not to destroy, to study. Each time they grew weaker, each time they learned, until they stopped." Dr. Lissa's light flickered like fire. "These are analysis beams, progenitor beams. They scan the quantum signature of intruders. They decide what to destroy, what to ignore." She turned to the council officers present, her voice a whisper of awe. They did not destroy the humans because the systems classified them as progenitors. The chamber fell into silence. Every alien eye turned to Sarah and her crew. They looked ordinary, fragile, confused, but the machines had seen them and bowed. Captain Zethara hissed her disbelief. "This cannot be. They are young, they are weak. They cannot be the ancients." But Dr. Lissa shook with certainty. "The quantum signature is not similar. It is identical. They are the same." Silent Song finally spoke. The translator hummed with cold words. The patterns repeat. The cycle begins again. The sleepers wake. The guardians remember. No one dared ask more. Sarah sat in silence as eyes bore into her. She was a cargo pilot who wanted nothing more than to return home. But now she carried the weight of a truth too vast to deny. Machines older than stars had seen her and called her kin. The return from the Forbidden Zone was silent. 3 ships drifting back into normal stars. Behind them, the nebula pulsed with new energy. Structures that had been dead for ages now glowed with light. Patterns moved across the dark like the veins of some vast awakening heart. Sarah Chen sat in the medbay of Inevitable Justice. Her body was weak, but her mind raced. She had been a cargo pilot. She had taken this job to earn credits for her family back home. She had wanted nothing more than safe passage. But now she was no longer ordinary. She and her crew were branded by machines older than history, marked as kin. News spread faster than the ships could travel. By the time they reached the station, the galaxy already knew. Humans were tied to the progenitors. The weakest species had become the most dangerous. At the council chamber, panic reigned. Species shouted over one another. Some demanded humans be elevated at once. Others called for their destruction before they could claim the inheritance of the ancients. The Crick Union thundered that humanity must be granted access to every progenitor site. They are the heirs, they cried. Let them reclaim their birthright. The Ethereal Coalition demanded caution. They must be studied, examined, understood before any decision is made. The Saurian hegemony argued for control. Restrict human access until it can be proven safe, until the risk is measured. And in the shadows, extremists whispered darker plans, that humans must be eliminated before they grew too strong, before the balance of power shattered. Dr. Lysandra stood before them all, her form dimmed with unease as she displayed her findings. Every major progenitor installation across the galaxy shows signs of awakening, she said. Energy levels are rising. Systems are activating. This is no accident. The sequence began when the humans entered the Forbidden Zone. She showed images of towers once dead, now glowing, machines once silent, now humming with force, a pattern spreading across the stars like a fire. Her final words struck deep. It is as though a giant system is powering on piece by piece. Each site is a node. Together they form something vast, something alive. The chamber fell to whispers. Meanwhile, Sarah Chen found herself dragged into endless interviews. Scientists pressed her with questions she could not answer. Government envoys demanded she explain her heritage. Reporters swarmed her with lights and words. She said the same truth each time. I do not know. I was born on Earth. I am only human. No one believed her. Her crew fared no better. Mike Torres showed the logs again and again. Lisa Park repeated the same memories. They had done nothing. They had survived because the weapons had stopped, because the machines had recognized them, nothing more. Yet the galaxy wanted meaning. The galaxy wanted answers, and humans could give none. On Earth, panic mingled with awe. Colonies once ignored by the great powers now found alien fleets orbiting nearby. Some came as friends, some as threats, some only to watch. The human government swore they had no secret technology. They begged for calm, but suspicion grew like a storm. And far away the Void Walkers spoke. Silent Song returned to their kind and delivered their message. The great hiding is ending. The sleepers wake. The ancient enemy stirs beyond the edges of the stars. The words spread like poison. What enemy? What had the progenitors fled? What was still waiting in the dark? Dr. Lissa pressed deeper into the data. Her light shimmered with fear as she revealed her theory. The progenitors did not vanish, she said. They did not die. They chose to forget. They reduced themselves. They scattered across the stars as primitive beings. They hid in plain sight. And humans may be them, not descendants, not heirs, but the progenitors themselves. The council broke into chaos. If she was right, then the youngest race was the oldest. The weakest was the strongest. The ordinary was divine. Sarah heard these words and felt a weight crush her chest. She had not asked for this. She had not sought destiny. She wanted only to go home, but now every eye in the galaxy turned to her. She was no longer a pilot. She was a symbol. Extremists began to act. Attacks on human colonies grew. Bombings, raids, threats whispered in the night. They feared what humanity might become. They feared what humanity already was. Sarah received threats daily. She was called deceiver. She was called destroyer. Some worshipped her as goddess. Some cursed her as doom. In secret laboratories, alien scientists studied human blood, human bone, human thought. They found nothing extraordinary, no mutation, no secret code. Yet when they placed humans near progenitor relics, the machines awoke. Always. The evidence could not be denied. Meanwhile, more sites stirred. A human exploration team landed on a forgotten world. They entered an ancient ruin. Without warning, the ruin bloomed to life. Vast machines roared awake. Devices were produced that defied all known science, and only the humans could touch them without harm. The galaxy shuddered. What if humanity was not gift but curse? What if the awakening called forth something far worse? Silent Song appeared again before the council. Their voice was flat through the translator. The great enemy sleeps between galaxies. It is not of this reality. The progenitors hid to escape it. But now the signal rises. Now it will hear. Fear fell like a blade. Sarah sat alone in her quarters aboard the station. Her hands shook as she stared at the stars. She thought of her family back on Earth, of her small house, of laughter by a fire. She had wanted only to return to them. Instead, she was chained to a fate older than time. The galaxy whispered her name with fear, and in the dark between stars, something vast turned its gaze toward them. The days that followed were filled with unease. Across the galaxy, progenitor sites stirred in unison. Towers that had slept for millions of years now blazed with light. Entire worlds that had once been barren now pulsed with strange energy. Everywhere the story was the same. When humans arrived, the machines awakened. Dr. Lissa Andra documented each case. Her light flickered with nervous wonder as she revealed the sequence. "This is not random," she said. "This is a program, a network. Each site activates in order. Each one sends signals to the next. Together they are building toward something vast." The council asked her what that something was. She could not answer, only that the scale was beyond imagination, beyond galaxies. And always the same truth returned. Only humans could stand near the machines without harm. Only humans could touch their controls. Exploration teams reported strange phenomena. Human crew members began dreaming in languages they had never learned. They began speaking words no translator could explain. They awoke with knowledge of technologies they had never studied. It was as if the machines were whispering into their blood. Sarah Chen heard the whispers too. At night she closed her eyes and felt patterns moving behind her thoughts. She saw cities of light across infinite skies. She saw towers taller than worlds. She saw shadows moving between galaxies. When she woke, she did not know if they were memories or dreams. Mike Torres showed signs as well. He found himself repairing machines he had never seen before. His hands moved as if guided by memory. When asked how he knew, he could only say, "I just knew." Lisa Park grew quiet. She spent hours staring at the stars. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft with awe. "I feel like I have been here before, as if the sky remembers me." The scientists around them grew frantic. They demanded tests. They demanded answers, but no test explained what was happening. The humans were ordinary and extraordinary all at once. Across the galaxy, fear deepened. Extremist groups rose faster. They claimed humanity was deception given flesh, that they would conquer all others once the machines fully awoke. Riots broke out on alien worlds. Human colonies fortified themselves against attack. The hegemony tried to keep order, but order slipped further with each passing day. Admiral Korak met with Sarah Chen in secret. His voice was heavy with the weight of command. He told her what Silent Song had revealed, that the progenitors had fled from an enemy not of this galaxy, that awakening the machines might call it back. Sarah sat in silence. Her heart sank with dread. She whispered the question she feared most. What if that enemy never left? The Admiral did not answer. Meanwhile, one human expedition stumbled into something far greater. On the world of Thalen 4, they discovered a progenitor facility buried deep beneath the surface. At first, it seemed silent, but when the human crew entered, the walls lit with fire. Machines began to hum. A factory of unknown design roared awake. It produced devices unlike anything seen before, shards of light that bent gravity, tools that healed wounds instantly, weapons that could erase stone with a single pulse. When alien scientists tried to touch them, the devices rejected their hands. Some suffered burns, some simply collapsed. But when humans held them, the devices worked as if they had been waiting for them all along. The news spread and terror followed. If humans could command such technology, then no species could stand against them. The galaxy trembled at the thought. Sarah Chen became the unwilling symbol of this fear. Crowds gathered outside the station where she stayed. Some came to praise her as a goddess reborn. Some came to spit curses and call for her death. She watched them through a window with tired eyes. She had never asked for this. She had never wanted it. In private, she confessed her fear to Mike and Lisa. What if this is true? What if we are not human at all? What if we are something older, something dangerous? Mike shook his head, his voice rough but steady. "I was born on Earth. I lived on Earth. My mother was human. My father was human. I am human. That is the truth." Lisa's eyes glimmered with tears, but the machines call us something else. Their words fell into silence. Dr. Lisa Andra pressed further into her research. She showed Admiral Korak the data no one wanted to believe. Every progenitor site had been deliberately shut down in unison 2 million years ago. Not destroyed, not abandoned, shut down like a system waiting for a signal to wake again. And now that signal had come. The Admiral asked the question that chilled the chamber. What happens when the system is fully awake? Dr. Lisa's light dimmed. I do not know, but the scale is vast enough to touch every star in this galaxy, perhaps every star beyond. The Admiral stared at her in silence. His mind turned to war, to defense, to survival. He knew what it meant. If the enemy's silent song spoke of still lived, then no fleet would be enough. No weapon would stand. The only chance was to understand, and only humans could provide that chance. So he turned to Sarah. He told her the truth. You are the key, whether you wish it or not. She felt the weight of it crush her. She wanted to scream that she was only a pilot, only a woman who wanted to go home, but deep inside she knew. The dreams, the whispers, the recognition in the machines, she was part of it, whether she accepted or not. And in the far reaches of the void, the ancient guardians continued to stir. Their signals reached across the stars. Their voices called to every progenitor site, and something vast in the dark listened. Sarah stood at the window of the station that night. She watched the stars. She whispered to herself words that no one else could hear. If we are the progenitors, then why did we forget? What were we hiding from? The stars gave no answer. But somewhere beyond them, something moved. The galaxy trembled on the edge of war. Every day brought new reports. Human colonies attacked by raiders. Alien fleets circling like predators. Extremist voices crying that humanity must be destroyed before it rose too high. In the council chamber, the arguments grew louder. Some demanded humans be given guardianship of all progenitor sites. Others shouted that they must be cut off from them forever. Old alliances fractured. Old rivalries flared. And always the machines kept waking. Silent song returned once more. The Void Walker stood in the center of the chamber, its body a shadow that absorbed every light. The translator gave voice to its thoughts. The great system rises. The hiding ends. The enemy beyond stirs. The council begged for clarity. What enemy, what truth? But the Void Walker gave no more. They never did. Meanwhile, Sarah Chen lived under guard. Her face broadcast across every channel. Her name whispered across every world. To some she was savior, to others destroyer. She felt like neither. She felt only tired. At night the dreams grew stronger. She saw towers of light collapsing under waves of shadow. She saw skis torn open. She saw beings of impossible scale moving between galaxies. She would wake with her hands shaking and her chest burning with fear. Mike Torres began to dream too. He spoke of machines that sang to him. He spoke of voices that guided his hands. He awoke speaking words no one else understood, yet the machines reacted to those words. Lisa Park grew distant. She would stare at her reflection and whisper softly, I know this face, but I think I wore others once. Dr. Lisa Andra documented it all. Her voice shook as she explained to the Admiral. They are awakening within as the machines awaken without. The recognition is not only in technology, it is in their very being. Admiral Korak listened in silence. He had commanded armies. He had faced wars without end. But nothing had ever unsettled him like 3 fragile humans who carried echoes of gods. The galaxy spiraled further. On one world, an alien mob burned a human embassy. On another, human settlers drove off their alien neighbors with weapons they did not fully understand, but somehow knew how to use. Each clash spread further fear. The Lucky Break itself was moved to a secret research station. Scientists tore through every panel, every circuit, every rivet, but they found nothing unusual, nothing divine. It was only an old cargo hauler, yet the logs remained. The scans remained, proof that the weapons had recognized them. Sarah visited the ship once. She walked its battered corridors and placed her hand on the cold hull. Memories surged unbidden. Memories that were not hers. Fleets of ships made of light. Civilizations vast and proud. and fire consuming it all. She tore her hand away with a gasp. Dr. Lissa saw her tremble and asked what she had felt. Sarah shook her head. I do not want to know. But she knew the truth was clawing its way back into her mind piece by piece. The council grew desperate. Some members proposed exile, to cast all humans away into the edge of the galaxy. Others proposed assimilation, to bind humans to their service and prevent them from rising alone. And some proposed the final option, elimination. The words spread in secret at first, then louder, then public. Kill them before they wake the enemy. Kill them before they reclaim what they were. Sarah heard of these debates and felt cold rage rise within her. She had tried to be calm. She had tried to explain, but her patience frayed. She stood before the cameras one day and spoke with fire. I am human. I was born on Earth. I have lived as human. I have loved as human. If the machines call us something else that does not erase who we are not gods. We are not monsters. We are human, and we will not bow. Her words spread like fire, across colonies, across worlds. Humans heard and stood taller. They remembered who they were, ordinary, fragile, yet unbroken. The speech frightened many, but it inspired more. Still the machines awoke. Still the signals spread. Ancient structures pulsed with power. Energy levels rose to heights never recorded. Dr. Lissa whispered the terrifying truth. The sequence nears completion. The system will soon be whole. Admiral Korak ordered fleets to prepare. He ordered defenses raised across every border. He knew it was futile, yet he could do nothing else. In the silence between battles, Sarah returned to the viewport. She watched the stars. She whispered to Lisa and Mike, "Do you feel it too?" Lisa nodded, her eyes wet. Yes, as if the universe itself waits for us to remember. Mike clenched his fists. If we are them, then why did we run? The question hung heavy. Silent song gave the answer none wished to hear. The enemy was too great. Even gods could not win, so they hid. They made themselves small. They made themselves forget. The words rang like death across the chamber. Sarah felt her chest tighten. She whispered the truth she feared. If we remember fully, then it will find us again. No one replied. And deep in the void beyond galaxies, something vast stirred at the edge of awareness. Something that felt the signals rising. Something that had once driven gods into hiding. The galaxy waited. Humanity stood in the center, and Sarah Chen felt the shadow draw nearer with every heartbeat. The galaxy burned with fear. Every day another progenitor site awoke. Great towers lit the night skies of distant worlds. Energy storms ripped across systems that had been silent for ages. The signals reached further, always further, as if calling across the void to something beyond. On human colonies, the effect was strongest. Machines long buried in soil began to rise. Structures shaped from light unfolded beneath oceans. Entire cities of ancient design revealed themselves under mountains. Everywhere humans walked, the machines stirred. Sarah Chen watched it unfold through endless reports. She felt the weight grow heavier with each page. She remembered the dreams. She remembered the whispers, and she knew the machines were not simply awakening. They were recognizing. Dr. Lissa Andra confirmed the pattern. Her voice shook as she spoke before the council. Each site that awakens broadcasts the same signal. A signal encoded within the very quantum fabric of reality, and every signal is directed toward one star, Earth. The chamber fell silent. Humans everywhere felt the change. Dreams that had once been faint became vivid. Some woke speaking in the language of the ancients. Some began building devices with their hands guided by memory they did not understand. Some could not endure the visions and collapsed into madness. Mike Torres worked with alien scientists who begged him to explain the machines. He told them he could not. Yet when his hands touched their panels, the machines obeyed. His voice grew heavy. They listened to me, but I do not know why. Lisa Park withdrew further into herself. She stared into mirrors for hours. One day she spoke softly to Sarah. I see faces that are not mine. I see lives that are not mine. I think we have lived before. Sarah took her hand and whispered, maybe, but we live now. That is what matters. Admiral Korak prepared fleets across every border. He knew something was coming, The Void Walkers had spoken. The ancient enemy stirs. Their words hung over him like a shadow. He ordered ships to guard human worlds. He ordered weapons primed. But deep inside he feared none of it would matter. Then came the first sign. At the edge of the galaxy, a listening post vanished. No warning, no alarm, just silence. When scouts arrived, they found space itself torn open. A wound in the void, energy patterns unlike anything known, and traces of something vast passing through. Silent Song stood before the council once more, its shadow darker than before. The great enemy has heard the call. It comes. The chamber shook with panic. Sarah sat in her quarters when she heard the news. She closed her eyes and the visions came stronger. She saw shadows spilling into galaxies. She saw fire swallowing light. And she heard a voice not her own whisper inside her chest. We remember. We endure. We rise. She opened her eyes with tears. She whispered to Mike and Lisa, it is coming, but so are we. On Earth, more structures awoke. Towers of crystal light rose above oceans. Energy shields wrapped entire cities. Weapons that no one understood activated and pointed toward the stars. Humanity had no control, yet the machines acted as though they knew war was near. Dr. Lisa Andra spoke the truth aloud. This is not awakening. This is preparation. The system is readying itself for battle. Alien species grew more desperate. Some begged humans to lead. Some threatened to destroy them before the enemy arrived. Civil wars erupted. Alliances cracked. Fear ruled every council. Sarah was brought before them all. She stood at the center of the chamber. She looked at the endless rows of eyes fixed on her, and she spoke with the strength of all her kind. I do not know what we were. I do not know why we forgot. But I know who we are now. We are human. We fall. We break. We bleed. But we rise again. If this enemy comes, we will not hide. We will stand. And if we once were gods, then so be it. But today we are only people, and that will be enough. Her words rang across the chamber. For a moment the voices stilled. For a moment hope sparked. But far away the wound in the void widened, and something vast pressed through. Sensors screamed with readings beyond comprehension. Energy fields that bent reality, shapes that twisted space itself. The first scouts of the ancient enemy had arrived. Vexai watched from his console and felt his 4 eyes blur with fear. The machines were right. The Void Walkers were right. The enemy had heard. And still the humans stood at the center of it all. Fragile, ordinary, yet unbroken. Sarah Chen looked into the stars and whispered to herself, we will not run. The shadows spread. The machines prepared. The galaxy trembled. The beginning of the end had arrived. The wound in the void widened until stars bent around its edges. From the darkness poured shapes that defied sight. Vast shadows that twisted into forms no mind could hold. Energy patterns older than galaxies. The enemy of the progenitors had returned. Fleets rushed to meet it. The strongest warships of a dozen species gathered in formation. Weapons fired beams of light brighter than suns. Explosions thundered across the dark, yet nothing touched the shadows. The blasts vanished into silence as if swallowed by nothingness. Admiral Korak stood on the bridge of inevitable justice, his voice calm though his heart raced. Hold the line, hold as long as you can, but deep inside he knew, no fleet could win this battle. Then the machines awoke fully. Across the galaxy, every progenitor site lit in unison. Towers burned with fire that reached the skies. Structures long buried rose from seas and deserts. Vast networks connected through space itself, and all of it centered on Earth. Sarah Chen felt it before the reports came. A pulse inside her chest like the beat of a second heart. The machines were not simply waking. They were calling to her, to all humans. Mike gripped her arm. Do you feel it? She nodded, yes. Lisa whispered, it is memory, it is us. Across human colonies, people collapsed as visions filled their minds. Cities of light. Wars fought among stars. The final decision to forget, to scatter, to hide. They saw themselves as they once had been. They saw the choice to abandon power to protect life. And now that power returned. Sarah walked onto the bridge of inevitable justice. Every eye turned to her. She stood straight though fear clawed at her bones. She spoke with quiet certainty. The machines will not fight without us. They wait for our voice. Dr. Lissa trembled with light. She knew it was true. The Guardians were not weapons alone. They were servants. They waited for their makers. Admiral Korek turned to Sarah. His eyes burned, then give the order. She closed her eyes. She let the pulse within guide her. She spoke words that rose unbidden, words of the ancients. The machines answered. Across the galaxy, towers rose higher. Shields flared, weapons older than stars unleashed. Energy beams not of physics as known cut across the void. The first shadow screamed without sound and dissolved into nothing. The fleets fell silent as they watched machines destroy what their strongest weapons could not touch. But the enemy did not falter. More shadows poured through the wound. Greater, darker, the void itself shook. Sarah staggered under the weight of memory. She saw why the progenitors had fled. She saw the endless war fought across galaxies. She saw the enemy that could not be destroyed, only delayed. She whispered with tears, "We ran because we could not win." Lisa placed a hand on her shoulder. "But we are not the same now. We are human, we are small, but we endure." Mike's voice thundered, "We fight even when we know we cannot win. That is what makes us human." Sarah opened her eyes and fire filled them. She raised her voice across every channel. "Machines of the ancients, hear us. We are human, we are fragile, but we will not run. Stand with us." The Guardians answered. Across the galaxy, energy surged. Weapons of impossible design cut through the dark. Shields of light covered fleets that had once been powerless. For the first time, the enemy reeled. For the first time, the shadows faltered. But the cost was heavy. Ships were torn apart. Worlds shook under the strain. Lives burned like sparks, yet the line held. Admiral Korek watched with awe. He whispered to himself, "This is what they feared, not the enemy, the humans." The battle raged for hours, for days. Time itself bent within the storm, yet the humans did not yield. Sarah's voice carried through the fleets. "Do not give in, do not turn away, hold." And they held. At last the wound began to close. The enemy retreated back into the void. Shadows dissolved into silence. The stars cleared. Silence fell across the galaxy. The survivors looked to Earth, to humanity, to Sarah Chen. They saw not gods, not progenitors. They saw people, small and fragile, yet able to command machines older than time. Sarah stood at the viewport. She saw towers of light stretch from her homeworld into the sky. She felt the memory within her blood. She knew the truth. Humanity had once been gods, but they had chosen to forget. They had chosen to be human. And that choice had saved them. Dr. Lissa spoke softly beside her. "You could reclaim it all. You could rule us all." Sarah shook her head. "We do not want thrones. We want to live. We want a hope. We want to fight when we must. That is enough." Silent Song appeared once more. Their shadow bowed low. The cycle continues, but now it is changed. The enemy will come again, but so will you. Sarah looked to the stars, her voice firm. "Then let it come. We will be ready." The galaxy whispered in awe. The humans were not just survivors. They were reminders that strength is not in power alone, that courage is not in perfection, that hope is not in immortality. The machines returned to silence but remained awake, watching, waiting, guardians once more. The galaxy rebuilt. Old fears lingered, old rivalries smoldered, but one truth could not be erased. Humanity had stood in the place of gods and had not broken. Sarah Chen returned to her ship. She placed her hand on the battered hull of the Lucky Break. She smiled through her tears. "We are human, that is all, and that is everything." The stars burned above. The shadows waited beyond. The future was uncertain. But humanity had remembered who they were. And they would never be forgotten again.